our reading of the Bible. We are halfway through. Well done. We start Proverbs today. We're going to do chapters 1 to 3. But before I start on chapters 1 to 3, some information on what the book of Psalms is about.
Book of
The
Proverbs.
Hebrew title comes from the word mashal, which, if you know the concordance reference, is 4912, and that's taken from Proverbs chapters 1 verse 1. It means to be like. Perhaps this word helps the readers to understand the analogies between the spiritual and the material things. The actual term Proverbs was derived from the Latin title that the book was given, Proverbium. The theme of the book is found in Proverbs chapters 1 verse 7, where the means by which wisdom comes is revealed, fearing Yahweh. The results of the proper application of wisdom include the ability to use God-given talents wisely, the realization of his moral obligations, and his own intellectual maturity. There are numerous authors of the book of Proverbs. However, the book is often attributed to Solomon because he wrote the largest portion. Solomon's Proverbs are divided into 3 sections. The longer connected Proverbs, chapters 1 to 9, short, unrelated verses, chapters 10 to chapters 22 verse 16, and longer didactic poems, chapters 25 to 29. Some would suggest that because the first and last sections are similar, they were collected by the men of Hezekiah, Proverbs chapters 25 verse 1. Another group of Proverbs is referred to as the sayings of the wise, chapters 22 verse 17 to 24 verse 34. Agur, the son of Jakeh, wrote as well, chapter 30. The last collection of Proverbs was written by King Lemuel, chapter 31. These were lessons that he was taught by his mother, as it states in verse 1. In the book of Proverbs, there are several divisions based on their content. The first is referred to as wisdom, Proverbs, and they're in chapters 1 and 8 and 9. They're referred to as such because of the personification of wisdom, Proverbs chapters 8 verse 4 and 12. Another section contains the proverbs of advice to the young, chapters 1 to 9. These are basically long explanatory poems, usually employing second-person pronouns for direct address. Other phrases that denote direct address are my son or you children. Solomon also addresses a number of proverbs to those who have a more mature mind, Proverbs chapters 10 to 22:16. Here, third-person pronouns are used in a form of indirect address. Some concepts include in this portion are God's sovereignty, chapter 16, verse 21, and child training, chapters 22. The fourth division is found in chapters 22 through 31. These are general collection of admonitions directed at both the young and old alike. Some of the topics mentioned in the book are benevolence, Proverbs 11, verse 24 to 26. The contrast between the right way and the wrong way, Proverbs 14:12 and 16:25. Separation, chapters 2 to 5, and abstinence from alcohol, Proverbs 20 verse 1 and 23:29 to 32. So, these proverbs are written by one of God's wisest men. It says in 1 Kings chapters 4:29 to 30, Solomon. However, that wisdom did not lead to wise decisions in all cases. We read of one wise one in 1 Kings chapters 3:28, and a poor one in chapters 11 verse 4. Even if we are not wise in the sense of being given wisdom as Solomon, we can still practice being wise and make wise decisions. Proverbs chapter 13 verse 20. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Proverbs 12:15. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he that hearkeneth unto counsel is wise. Proverbs 28 verse 7. Whosoever keepeth the law is a wise son, but he that is a companion of righteous men shameth his father. So in those we are given directions of how to be wise. There is none wiser than Yahweh God. Walking with him and keeping his laws is the ultimate beneficial wisdom. His laws are to be followed, whether we understand them or not. They are not open to interpretation nor amendment as many do or teach. If we do not understand, do not interpret, but do. Remember Psalms 111 verse 10. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do his commandments. His praise endureth forever. God's law is our wisdom. Deuteronomy chapter 4 verse 6 states, Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations. We shall hear all these statutes and say, Surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great who have God so near unto them as Yahweh our God is, and is in all things that we call upon him for? And what nation is there so great that have statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law, which I set before you this day? God told us not to use our own eyes nor understanding, but to obey him. Proverbs 19 verse 10. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. One major problem with seekers of God is not knowing what is holy and what is ordinary or unholy. Holy is what God has set apart as his appointed times, Leviticus chapter 23, and also things. Anything else is unholy or common. God spoke of one such people in Ezekiel, but they also exist today in many denominations. Ezekiel chapters 22 verse 26. Her priests have violated my laws and have profaned mine holy things. They have put no difference between the holy and profane. Neither have they showed difference between the unclean and the clean, and have hid their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profaned among them. We are also called to be holy by learning from God's law, prophets, and their writings. I sincerely hope the reading of Proverbs and God's word increases your wisdom and refine your actions to one of today submission and obedience to Yahweh our God. Okay, on to Proverbs chapter 1 verse 1, the beginning of knowledge. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice and judgment and equity, to gain subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and direction. A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsel. Verse 7. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Verse 10. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. Verse 15. My son, walk not thou in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path, for their feet run to evil, and make haste to shed blood. Verse 22. How simple ones, we love simplicity, and the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. To me, those verses says it all of many people today. Hate knowledge, want to follow traditions of men. Chapters 2, verse 1. My son, if thou wilt receive my words and hide my commandments with thee, so that thou incline thy ear unto wisdom, and apply thine heart to understanding. Yea, if thou criest after knowledge, and liftest up thy voice for understanding, if thou seekest her as silver, and searchest her as for hid treasures, then shalt thou understand the fear of Yahweh, and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. Verse 20. That thou mayest walk in the way of good men, and keep the paths of the righteous. For the upright shall dwell in the land, and the perfect shall remain in it. But the wicked shall be cut off from the earth, and the transgressors shall be rooted out of it. So this is what happened, firstly in Noah's generation, when it states they departed from God's way, continually. Secondly, to the nations of God. So to the nations God took out of a promised land, or commanded Israel to root them out. And thirdly, is a prophecy for the future. Okay, Proverbs chapter 3, verse 1. My son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. For length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee. Verse 4. So shalt thou find favour and good understanding in the sight of God and man. Trust in Yahweh with all thy heart, and lean not on thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear Yahweh, and depart from evil. And a few verses of chapter 3, starting at verse 11. My son, despise not the chastising of Yahweh, neither be weary of his correction. For whom Yahweh loveth, he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth. Verse 25. Be not afraid of sudden fear, neither of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh. For the Lord shall be thy confidence, and shall keep thy foot from being taken. Withhold not good from them to whom it is due, when it is in thy power of thy hand to do it. Say not unto thy neighbour, Go, and come again tomorrow, I will give thee, when thou hast it by thee. Now for a written version of these studies, you can see the Facebook page of Resky. I hope you've taken in the subject of these Psalms and follow them. Shalom, until tomorrow, God willing.